Welcome to or welcome back to Founders and Genes. I'm your host, Emily Jean. And before we get into the episode, I just want to say a huge thank you so much for listening to my podcast. It means the world to me. It is a really special project to me. It's very close to my heart. And I also wanted to say that if you enjoy the show, feel free to leave a review on Spotify or Apple, wherever you're listening to this, and also to follow us. You can follow us on Spotify, of course. You can follow us on Instagram at Founders and Genes. You can also find me on Instagram at emily.jeans, or you can look me up on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to connect with people on there, and I have a lot of good conversations from listeners. Also, you can always leave a bad review for us. I'm totally fine with that. And in fact, I think that's exciting. I would love to know what we can do to improve. So you can also leave comments below and let me know what you enjoyed, what you didn't enjoy. I actually do read every single one. We also have a newsletter that comes out once a week, so you can get all the updates from us. We also put in some weekly business and marketing updates, as well as some personal notes from me. You can subscribe to that on my LinkedIn, also through the Instagram and in the show notes below. Anyways, that is all from me. I'm so excited for you to listen to this episode. I hope it's a good one, and I'll chat to you soon. Bye. Okay. Ella McMahan
Yes.
of Spring Fertility. Welcome to Founders and Genes. I'm so excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, totally. So I am Ella. I'm, like Emily said, the director of marketing at Spring Fertility. And we have a few different brands under the Spring umbrella. So Spring Fertility, Open Fertility, and then Nest Donor Bank. And so I oversee all three of those brands. And just for a little bit of background, because I know we'll be talking more about my industry and all the things today, Spring Fertility is a full service fertility clinic. So IVF, egg freezing, IUI, third party reproduction through donor tissue or gestational carriers. So again, just to give a little bit of background, but I've been with Spring for almost 6 years at this point, and came in as the second marketing hire. So have really seen a lot of growth, and excited to dive in and talk about it.
Yay, I'm so excited. I feel like fertility is something I'm hearing more and more about. I mean, I don't think that's surprising, especially as I'm getting into my later 20s, mid 20s. But I heard somebody the other day said, like, it's never too early to start thinking about like your own fertility and what you want that process to look like in the future. So yeah, I feel like this is a very well timed conversation. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like I hear that all the time. I'll like be at a dinner party and meet somebody new and tell them what I do. And they're like, oh my gosh, my girlfriend just told me that she froze her eggs. Or like, it's always kind of this conversation that I feel like is like circling people. But I like when I get to have a conversation with someone about it and be like, here's actually the information.
Right. Good. I love that. I love that. Okay, great. Well, I want to kind of go back to the beginnings. You said 6 years now.
6 years.
So yeah, what kind of led you to go into that role?
Yeah. So it was not at all what I set out to do. So I've actually been working at Spring my entire career since I graduated college. And I came out of college. I went to school in Los Angeles. And when I graduated, I moved to San Francisco. And I really wanted to work for one of the like really cool, fun San Francisco based brands. Like Allbirds was like my dream, or like Levi's or Pottery Barn. And I actually interviewed with all of them and didn't get any of the jobs, which at the time was like, soul crushing. And it was late fall of 2019 at the time. And I had, again, just moved to San Francisco, and I was doing some like freelance stuff, and I ended up finding out about Spring through a Facebook group. My now manager, who has been my manager for the entirety of my time at Spring, replied to a comment on a post that I had posted that was like, I'm a new grad. I'm looking for a job in marketing or events or communications. And she was like, I'm hiring for a community manager. And at the time, I had actually gotten an interview at a PR firm that I was like way more excited about. Cause again, I had been like, oh, I really like want to work on these like fun, cool brands. And I was like, fertility, like IVF, like, I barely know what that is. Like, I was 23, right? I'm like, this sounds like so lame. And then I went into my first interview with, again, my now manager, and she told me this story about how she had been sitting in a coffee shop recently near one of our clinics, and someone had come up to her because they saw the Spring Fertility sticker on her computer, and they had a baby with them, and they were like, "I have a spring baby, like, he was born through IVF," and I, like, thankfully, at the time, we weren't really on Zoom yet because it was, like, still 2019. I'm just on the phone with her, and I, like, started to, like, tear up, and she was just like, "It's so meaningful." Ability to, like, put up a Facebook ad and then, like, have somebody get a baby at the end of that is, like, crazy, and so I was really like, "Okay," even though I did end up getting the PR job as well, but I was like, "This seems like maybe it's more of an impactful situation," so I ended up going with Spring, and it just, like, expanded my worldview so much, and I think that, like, I've learned so much since being, like, a 23-year-old who really didn't know anything about my body candidly at the time, like I thought that I did. And now after working here for so long, I'm like, wow, I didn't really know much. So I think that, it's been quite a journey. And again, it's almost been 6 years, but it's just like the most impactful place to work. And I think that a lot of people probably in healthcare would tell you that like healthcare, while it can be like stuffy or clinical or whatever, like you really do see the impact that you're making.
That term community manager too, like, I think we're hearing a lot more about community nowadays, but I think 6 years ago, that was not really at the forefront at a lot of brands.
Yeah.
And it totally makes sense that that would be at the forefront of a fertility company. Yeah, narrowing down that mission, I guess, to we post something on Facebook and then somebody connects to it and like gets a baby out of it at the end that is an amazing, like, that is a crazy idea. And I love that. Like, it's so simple, but it's so true.
Totally.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I, w- I want to go back a little bit then. So you're leading the marketing for an entire family of brands.
Mhm.
For people who aren't really familiar with what that structure looks like, what does that mean to be leading the marketing for these different brands?
Totally. And so Spring is, and I say Spring, but I'm talking about, multiple of the brands. Spring is more, I would say, in the like less like corporate big structure. Like it's not like General Mills who has like all these brands underneath it, right? It's more like it's not quite a startup, but I think we're sort of in that middle phase still a little bit. We're about 10 years in. And, when I think about just like how that looks from a like tactical standpoint, it really is that Spring is sort of like our not sort of, it is our premier brand. We have Spring locations in California and New York and in Portland, Oregon. And then Open Fertility, which is our brand new brand under the Spring umbrella, opened in January of this year. It is an accessibly priced fertility clinic. Basically, the whole idea behind this is that like more and more people are needing fertility treatment, and it's so expensive, honestly, like, and we wish that every single person could come to Spring and get a Spring experience, but like it's $25,000 for IVF, right? And so like that's just not accessible for everybody. And so we opened in Sacramento as well as in Queen and Astoria in New York. And it is about half the cost of a cycle at Spring for both IVF and egg freezing. And the model is just different. So again, you see a nurse practitioner. It's really good for people who have no fertility insurance coverage, and they can't afford to pay the Spring price. And so again, it's a newer model, but it's something we're really excited about. And then we have Nest Donor Bank, and that is essentially, for all intents and purposes, it's just like the same as any other kind of like egg or embryo donor bank. We don't do sperm at this point, but for example, if you're a Spring patient and you need a donor egg or donor embryos, you can just work with Nest. And it's just a bit more of a streamlined process for the patient. So they don't have to like go to an outside egg bank, work with Spring to like do all the testing on the tissue that they, want to bring inside of Spring. Things just vetted at Nest already. And so it's like up to the Spring standard, and it's really easy for a Spring patient to use.
Wow. So it's so interesting. I have so many questions. I'm sure a lot of people do, right?
Yeah. No, totally. Ask me anything. I'm ready.
I'm sure you've heard it all. So interesting. I love too that you're being transparent about what it costs and like what that looks like too, because I do think we hear a lot about IVF, 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 IVF. And it's like, what does that actually look like for the average American, for example? Which is, I think it's really is unapproachable. It seems scary too, not only uncomfortable, but it's like a process, I know in short,
Yeah.
hormones, and
Yes.
that's about it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I guess I want to ask you, what does your day to day look like in your role? What does
Yeah.
that look like?
Yeah. So, like I said, I started as a community manager and then I was brand manager, and then a senior manager, and now I'm in this director role. So I've touched every single piece of marketing at Spring at this point, which has been really cool. And I think, really served me in the role that I'm in now because I know exactly what levers we can pull and how they're going to respond. But my day to day now is a lot more about zooming out and like thinking about the strategy, not only of the like digital marketing and things you think of when you think of marketing, but also the marketing operations part of it. So I work a lot cross functionally with our call center team and our finance team and, other operations, clinical operations to make sure that the patient experience from like the first ad that they see or the first time they hear about us in their OB's office to when they are graduating from Spring, either having frozen their eggs or they're pregnant, that it's like a seamless experience, that we are centering the patient experience in all things. And so I'm often used as almost like a gut check for those kind of cross functional teams to be like, here's the email for finance that we're going to send out to patients. Like, we're updating, our templates. Like, what do you think of this? And then I'm like, okay, that's actually way too like abrupt as of a way to say that. Like, we're gonna bring that back to like the warmth and the empathy, that's at the center of like our brand ethos.
Right.
So yeah, it's stuff like that.
Okay. I love that. So I know that speaking on that, like there is a lot of, I guess, I think reproductive health is kind of soaked in a lot of clinical terms or in shame. And so I am curious, how do you balance then that zone between informative, but also inviting and empathetic?
Totally. So again, I think this is like really about centering the patient experience and what we have seen as a marketing team. And I would say just like as a team generally at Spring and our other brands is that like education as a first step for marketing is like the best possible way to do things for a fertility clinic. So I think that something we hear, and this is like so interesting to me, having worked at Spring for the entirety of my like fertility career, right? Is that like one of the girls on my team, before she worked at Spring, she had gone to one of our competitors for a consult and she got blood work done. And then she just like in her app got her results and like nobody ever called her to explain it. And in the app, it was like, you have a low AMH, which AMH is like is a hormone marker that we use to measure basically your ability to get pregnant at any given time. And so she like tells a story about how she's like, I freaked out, right? Because like nobody called me or like told me what was up with this. That like it was low. Like, was I infertile? Was I never going to be able to have a child? Right. And so I think that like the reverse of that is like, how can we educate people before they even walk in the door? And that is like, brings the community aspect of it into it as well, right? Like, we host so many events in all of our markets because we want people to be able to like walk in the door for free to like a restaurant or a fitness studio, wherever we're hosting this event, and like sit across from a doctor and get their questions answered for free before they ever have to walk into the clinic. And then I will tell you, like, as again, like somebody who's in this demographic, right, who has a lot of friends who have like gone through egg freezing, and it's this different experience that other clinics are not offering. And I think other sectors of healthcare are not offering. And so like you go to the OBGYN to like get your IUD inserted and you're terrified because you're like, I'm seeing on TikTok that people are like passing out when they get their
Right.
IUD inserted, right? And like, what an amazing opportunity for the OBGYN's office to like present you with information before you even walk in the door and say like, hey, sometimes it's painful and this is what we're going to do about it. So like people aren't freaked out. And I think that like infertility, what we hear so much is that making that first appointment is actually the hardest part for a lot of people because whether they're doing egg freezing or they are coming in for IVF services and trying to conceive, like there is this level of I have to acknowledge that I need help in some capacity. And like that's really hard. And I think when you've gotten the education up front of like, this affects like IVF, 1 in 6 people need help getting pregnant. And it's like probably underreported. So there's probably more, right? Like probably closer to 1 in 4, 1 in 5. And being able to have that knowledge before you walk in the door makes it so much less scary. And so I think, yeah, just like when we think about marketing Spring or Open or Nest, like it's all about what can we give to people before they're even a patient, because that makes them feel so much more comfortable with us.
Yeah. I love that too. I think I'm always thinking about how can businesses and brands stay relevant in a
Mhm.
fast moving like
Yeah.
world basically.
Yeah.
And I think actually with the introduction of AI, we see a lot of businesses who are moving into this, robotic kind of manufactured experience for their clients. And I chatted with somebody the other day. We were talking about how like careers or jobs or businesses that have humanness at the center of it. And like that approach is what will outlast that because that's what people will be looking for even more. And so that ability to create like a journey of education, but also welcome and like, you're not going to be in the dark, basically, even though it might be in some ways easier or more cost effective for a company to do that. I really don't think that is like the long term way of achieving success for a brand. So that's brilliant. I'm curious, what has been like the most powerful campaign or message that you've worked on so far in your time?
Yeah. So before I was in this director role and when I was a senior manager, I was managing all of our influencer partnerships. And this was something that it's so funny. Like when I talk to my manager about it now, I'm like, I feel like I bullied you into like letting me work on influencers. We opened in New York and I was like, we have to work with influencers. She was like, that's not really our brand. And I was like, no, we have to. And like it's been amazing for the business, and it's really cool to like reflect on some of those. And I think that my favorite campaign that I ever worked on was with Serena Kerrigan. I don't know if you're familiar with her,
Love
but
her. Yeah.
yeah, she's amazing. And she was one of our, or maybe was our first like really big influencer that we worked with. And she's done 2 cycles with us and has just been not only like such a joy internally to work with, but also is so passionate about the subject that she's really gone above and beyond and like aligned herself with our ethos of education. And so we've hosted multiple events with her. We have done, so much like branded social content. We have given away a free egg freezing cycle to one of her followers. That was her idea. And she was like, I'll cover the cost of meds. Like, and I will tell you, no other influencer, and there have been many amazing ones, but like no other influencer that we have worked with at Spring has had that level, I think, of just like connection to like what they were really doing for like a group of egg freezers to like educate them on like not only what is egg freezing, but like here are the things you need to know about your reproductive health in your 20s and 30s that like nobody's telling you. And beyond that, like how can you take the first step to empower yourself? Like, that's her whole thing, right? Is like empowerment. And so I think she like really took it in stride. Um and again, like working with influencers is so interesting, right? Because you have the people like her who are just like, I want to go above and beyond and like do all the things. And they really care about this. And then there are people who are like, yeah, I'm an influencer, so I want to freeze my eggs for free. Like, where's my paycheck? And so she's the opposite of that. And so I think like, again, a combination of her going above and beyond for her audience and really understanding what this is about and like being a joy to work with just on the back end has like far and away, I always think of her so fondly.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Also, I would have never thought of combining like influencers with a fertility, but it totally makes sense, especially somebody like her who has such a strong community already and
Exactly.
the demographic is very much there.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
And
Like,
like
yeah.
people trust, I mean, this is kind of sad, right? But like people trust influencers more than they like trust their own doctor sometimes. And so like whole idea behind this, I was like, if people are going to trust an influencer anyway, like if we partner with them and we tell them exactly what to say or like we approve what they're going to say, then we're getting the information to people, but it doesn't have to be through us. Such an easier way to do that and feels a lot, I think, just more authentic to people to receive it in
Right.
that way.
Right. So I guess then going off the back of that, from language to design to influencers, is there a specific element do you think that helps make fertility marketing resonate more today with the consumer?
Yeah, I think that it's all about messaging. I think that the reason influencers are so effective is because they talk to their followers like they're their girlfriends.
Mm,
And obviously, there has to be a balance between, like, it's not like getting a blowout, like egg
right.
freezing, right? Like, it is scientific and it's clinical and it's all these things, but we don't have to talk about it in such a way that feels like you need to have a degree in biology. And so I think that, like, when we just think about messaging as a tool, when I am like earlier today, I was, looking at a piece of print collateral that we're going to share in Long Island when we open there in a few weeks. And I'm reading it and I'm always thinking, like, okay, if I were sitting in a doctor's office and I saw this postcard, what would I think? And so, like, everything is filtered through that brain, like, not only just from me, but like from other members of my team who, again, are like in this target audience, where like I actually think that that would feel cheesy, or I think that that would feel like I didn't understand what that means. And so I think that, like, really centering again like that human narrative of like what would people understand and want, while also I think like just a little bit of like, imagery is also important. Like, you want people to see themselves in the brand. And so I think, again, like what you said about AI is so true, right? Like, just having different like designs or whatever is like really not going to end up cutting it, because people are going to be like, this all looks the same. It all sounds the same, right? Like, ChatGPT has a voice. We all know it. And so,
Right.
like, I think that, yeah, just the combination of like really human centric imagery that mimics what our customers actually look like. And then again, like speaking to them in a way that they want to be spoken to is really important.
Right. When it comes to building a community, which I know that you guys have a very strong community, how are there any tools or platforms that you have found that specifically have really helped foster that, kind of sense of trust in such a vulnerable space?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say like actually no, like a platform and a tool, not really. You know, I will say, just to back up, like I was listening to the Hot Smart Rich podcast yesterday and they were talking about how when they created the first iteration of this WhatsApp group that we met in, it was on Slack and it like didn't really land with people. And we have tried in the past to like do a Slack channel or do a Facebook group. And it was in the era of COVID, like 2022, 2023. So I think that people weren't necessarily ready for that,
Mhm.
or they were just bogged down by it. But I do think that now more than ever, we see people wanting connection. But I think that our patients specifically are looking more for every so often connection in person versus like constant connection online, just because I mean, they're not thinking about fertility every single day, right? Like once they do it. And so it's not necessarily on their mind as much. But yeah, so not a specific tool online, but events are like a way that we have continued to foster that.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually really love that distinction. I think there's a tendency when you're building something, building a brand, is to want to do everything. And we hear like community is this trending word. So we need a constant WhatsApp group or, a Facebook group that's always engaging each other and connecting with one another. And I think it's very fair and appropriate to say, well, look, it's a singular process. And of course, there is going to be an element of community and connection there, but it doesn't need to be constant. And also, there is going to be a certain time and age where it won't be as big of a priority or even a priority at all. Theoretically, if it's successful, I mean,
Yeah. You
that's
never
kind
have
of
to
the
think about it
goal.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I think that like, and I've been an ambassador for various brands over the years. And like, I think that when I look at the brands that I've been an ambassador for, there's one in particular. I don't know if you're familiar with the canned wine brand Bev, but they're now sold and they don't do their ambassador program anymore, unfortunately. But the brand started when I was in college and it was based in Venice. And so like I got really involved in it. Some of the girls that I went to school with worked there after college. Like, but they were so intentional about like how can we all meet up and how can we get product into your hand so you can foster community with the product in your hand? And I think that like other brands that are just like, we'll send you something, get in posts about it. It's
Right.
like, that never works because your brand is not the center of my universe. But like when you hand me something that I can incorporate into what I'm already doing with my friends, and then like my friends were all just here. I just got engaged a few weeks ago and they were all like, do you have any Bev? Like my friends from college. And I was like, no, I don't have any Bev. But it's still something they ask about because it was like, part of like our universe at the time.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that distinction too about community. I saw somebody said the other day, community is not random people on the internet talking to each other. It's like the goal is somebody really likes and resonates with the brand. And then they say to their friend, oh my gosh, you've got to check out this podcast or this brand or XYZ. And I really like that's such a pure distinction because it's very
Mhm.
true. I
Yeah.
never recommend things to my friends unless I'm like 100% obsessed.
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
And we get so many of our patients from word of mouth and friend referrals. And we've tried a few times over the years to like have an ambassador program. And finally, we've like iterated, and I'm sure we'll continue to iterate, but like we just were talking about it a few weeks ago. And I was like, we can't try to like make them post on social media about that. I was like, we do invite them to a wine bar and like get them to talk to each other. And then they'll have us on their mind and talk to their friends about us more. Like try to do this whole thing. And I think that I mean, it remains to be seen, of course, but I think that like it will be effective in this new iteration because we're not being like, you need to be talking about spring all the
Right.
time.
Right. Right. Well, and like even when you consider, big brand trips, influencer trips,
Hmm.
I think it was Olipop, and they spent like a crazy amount of money. And I think now the consumer is really a bit done with those because it just seems so forced. And of course, it looks glamorous, but I'm not like on the trip with them. And then if I'm at the grocery store, I'm not like, wow, I remember how XYZ looked in that bikini
Yeah,
next to the pool. It is funny to have those things like they make transitions and come back and go in. But
totally,
um,
totally.
by the way, congratulations on your engagement. That's so exciting. I love that. I saw in your bio, you said that outside of work, you are the connector and you're hosting, officiating weddings, and starting deep conversations. How has that shaped how you like lead at work?
Yeah. So I think that, have you ever heard of the first follower, like leadership theory?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so I'm like kind of a like leadership nerd. I minored in leadership in college and I was a communications major. So like all I did was like read about stuff like this. So basically the first follower, you can look up the video on YouTube, but it is this video of this man and he's dancing alone at a concert. It's in this like big open space. He's dancing alone for a while and then this other man comes up and he's like the first follower. And once the second person comes up, then this like whole crowd of people comes up because they're like, okay, now it's like cool because there's two people, right? And so I feel like everything that I have like, whether it's like creating connection or leading my team, like really comes back to this idea of the first follower, which is like there's always going to be people who are like visionaries and like have the big idea or are the first person to speak up. And like typically I'm actually not really that person. Like I'm a bit more introverted, but where I really see my strength as a connector is I come in and I can be like, I think that's a really good idea. And here's why everyone else should get on board. And, like, on top of that, I think part of that is being, like, that first person, like, I see you and I understand what you're trying to do, and I think that, officiating weddings, like, I just did my brother's, which was so special, and, like, of course, I know my brother so much more than, like, I know his wife. I grew up with him, right? But, like, there was no world in which I was gonna, like, make it all about my brother, like, I wanted her to feel seen too, right? And, like, I think that is sort of the common thread with everything that I do is, like, I want to be the person when somebody's telling a story and everyone else, like, starts talking in another group that I'm like, "I'm still listening." So I think that's just like that's like innate in me, but also I think learned through like a lot of leadership classes that I went through that
Mhm.
like the best leader is really the person who is not always the visionary, but is like, okay, that's amazing. You're amazing. And like, here's what we're going to do to get everyone else on board.
Yes, I love this. I have so many thoughts on this. I was the director of marketing for a luxury brand in California
Mhm.
last year. And I was leading a small team, and I got some feedback from my manager that I was too soft. And I think that looking back, and everybody has their own way of
Yeah.
approaching that sort of thing.
Yeah,
But looking back, it makes me kind of sad that like I got that feedback because for me, I felt like I was just being friendly and welcoming and inviting and empathetic.
totally.
And I think often as women, we're expected to like, not be that person, like not be the first follower and like kind of like we're held to this double standard of you need to be impressive and accomplished and badass, but also kind and soft and whatever it may be and feminine. And I love too that you're making that connection between, well, this is what goes on in my personal life. And I've like taken a big emphasis and this is how it comes into my work. I think that's brilliant and beautiful. And people don't talk about that kind of idea enough at all.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think that I mean, you're so right about the double standard, right? It's like, yeah, you need to be like a girl boss, but then also be soft and be all these things. And like I feel like I've heard this on so many like founder podcasts and like, Second Life and all these different things where the people who are really successful, if you like broke down all of those with AI and you're like, what's the common thread? It's like that these people knew when to bring somebody else into the mix when they weren't the person who could keep the dream alive. And like, I feel so strongly about that I'm like, again, I'm not always the person with the best idea in the room. And like, I'm actually very okay with that. Like, I know how to rally the team around the other amazing person on my team and be like, that's such a good idea. How can we make that happen? And I do think to your point, like that needs to be celebrated more that like we need empathetic leaders and like we need people who aren't leaders because they're the loudest person in the room, you know? Yeah.
Right. And I think I would even say, like, in my experience, women at least, if you're leading a team of more women, they
Mhm.
respond better to
Yes.
kindness and softness and
Yes.
empathy. And I mean, I've never managed a group of guys before, so I can't really speak to that.
Yeah.
But I would assume that like your style changes depending on who's in the room with you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think that like, talking to senior leadership, which is a lot of men, like it does have to obviously be less soft and empathetic, but I yeah, exactly. But I think that it's like, knowing when to do that code switching and like also knowing like my true essence is like being this like empathetic leader. But I know that when I step into a room of men that are really data driven and like don't want to hear the soft stuff, that you have to be like, okay, I'm like sort of not leveling up because I don't necessarily know that that's leveling up, but like taking on a new persona of like, here's the data, here's what we're going to do about it. Like,
Totally. I am curious then. So, if you're helping people, I know you're kind of constantly helping people navigate these really personal journeys, not to mention this very empathetic leadership quality that you have. How do you make time and space to refill your own cup while serving others?
yeah, this is definitely something I've had to learn over the years how to do. But a few years ago in 2022, just hit 3 years, my fiancé and I moved to Lake Tahoe from San Francisco, and I, at the time, was like, "Why would I move to the mountains? Like, I wanna be in the city, I wanna be doing all the things." And we moved here, and I was, like, so humbled by myself. Like, I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's, like, so calm here, and, like, everyone is relaxed." And, like, the first thing people ask you is, like, "Do you like to ski or paddleboard?" It's not like, "Well, what do you do for a job?" And, like, I think that first of all, like living in a place where I feel really grounded has helped me so much because I wake up and maybe I'm already having a stressful morning because I woke up and I saw a stressful email, but I'm like, okay, but I get to like walk outside into the forest or like go jump in the lake. And like, at least I don't like live on a busy street where I'm like hearing sirens all day.
Right.
And so I think that's a big part of it is just, like, being able to walk outside in the fresh air and jump in the lake or, like, go on a walk with my dog and, like, have it be really, like, undisturbed, like, calm environments that I'm in.
Right. My mom used to live in South Lake Tahoe.
I love
Yeah. God, it's cold, girl. It's
It
so
is.
cold
It
in the
is.
winter.
It does get really cold. I'm not that big into the outdoor sports in the winter, actually, which is kind of funny. Like, I'm more of a summer person, but my partner is really into snowboarding. But in the winter, I'm just like, I'm gonna read my book like all day. And I'm
Yeah,
gonna go on a walk with my dog and I'm gonna go
good.
to the grocery store.
Yeah, yeah. Hibernation season, that's what it
Exactly.
really is. Yeah. Where are you originally from? I'm sorry, I didn't even get a chance to ask.
No, no worries. I'm from Seattle originally.
Okay, okay, got
Yeah.
it, got it. And then
Yeah.
you lived in San Francisco and now Tahoe. Okay, got it. I'm originally from San Luis Obispo.
Nice.
Okay,
Beautiful. I love it
yeah.
there. Yeah.
It's always fun for me to get to tell somebody who knows, like, what it is or where it is
Yeah.
because rarely I'm in Sydney now, so rarely do I get the
Yeah.
opportunity.
They're like, "Oh, I don't know what that is."
Yeah, and they're like, "Cool, okay."
Yeah. No, I love it there.
Um, okay, well, so I'm curious then, if you weren't in marketing, is there another career that you feel like you could pursue that would let you lean into the same passion you have for connection and community?
Yeah, so I've always felt so called to this idea of a third space that everybody has like been talking about for so long at this point. I was a member of a co-working space when I first moved to San Francisco that sadly no longer exists due to COVID. And it was an all female identifying co-working space. They had workout classes in the building. They had acupuncture once a week that was free for members. Had like, Olipop was kind of just coming up at the time, but like there was Olipop in the fridge and, there was Coco Kind in the like outdoor shower. And like it was like a dream, like a CPG girl's dream, right? And like I don't work in CPG, but I think in another life I probably would. But I like since being in that space, and it's so funny, like I was 23, I wasn't really like building community with these women. They were like all in their 30s. And I was just like, hey guys, I'm so happy to be here. But since then, I think that I've been like, okay, I really see like what the value was in that. And so I feel so called in some way to either like, I don't know if it's making my own co working space or if it's like dinner series where I bring people together. Like, I don't exactly know. I'm trying to figure it out right now. But I think that like my marketing experience will help me, obviously, in either of those career paths. But I do think that like community because of my leadership background has always like really been at the center of what I've wanted to do. So it's just figuring out, I guess, how to execute on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's fun. I've been thinking of joining a co-working space here in Sydney.
sure.
I've never done it before. It feels a little bit intimidating. I'm gonna have to look up and see if they have any female Emily because I feel like that would be my total
Yeah.
jam.
They're so fun. And usually they like plan really cool events and like, yeah, it's a really cool way to meet people. And again, like I wasn't really like, I would like meet these women and I follow them on Instagram and stuff, but they weren't like my friends. They were like moms, but,
Yeah,
but it was still really cool.
yeah. Good. Um, okay, so I do want to ask you, I have so many questions. Sorry. I hate saying that, but I do.
I'm at the end of my day. So as many questions as you want,
Okay,
feel free.
good. I've got you all like lathered up and I'm gonna get all your secrets out of you. So I want to know what is one fertility myth that you wish would disappear forever?
Yeah, I think that it's easy to get pregnant. That is like and I understand why people believe that because like our entire adolescence, we're like in, health class or you're watching Mean Girls and like don't get pregnant or you're going to die.
Right.
Like, and so everyone's thinking like, oh, if I have sex one time in high school, like I will be a statistic. And it's so crazy to learn that like it's actually pretty like difficult to get pregnant and it's really is like a miracle when it happens and there's no issues. And so I think that just like people understanding that it's okay to like ask questions and it's okay to like go in for a fertility consult even if you don't want to freeze your eggs or you're not ready for kids. Like it's great to know what your baseline is and understand what like your reproductive system is really even doing so that when you're actually ready to be pregnant you're not, like, surprised by all of
Right.
that.
Right. I love that. I feel like my mom is the queen of spreading this rumor as well. She's like, "Oh, it was so easy." I'm one of 5 girls, and she had me when she was 39 and my little sister when she was 41. So I always thought that was, like, normal.
Totally.
And
Totally,
then I
why
got
wouldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
got older and I saw the other day, actually, it's so funny. I saw on Reddit, it was like, somebody was like, "Can I get pregnant when I'm 40?" And the first reply was like, "Absolutely not." And I was like, it was like 100% no. So it is funny too how our personal experiences shape those predictions.
Totally. I mean, I had an Uber driver a few months ago and he asked me what I did. He was driving me to the airport and I was like, I'm going on a work trip, whatever. And he's like, so all these celebrities who have babies when they're 50, what's that about? Like, why can they get pregnant? And I was like, well, they're probably using a donor egg. But he's like, what about Hugh Hefner? And I'm like, okay, let me break down sperm for you.
Yeah, let's go back to the basics.
Yeah, I'm like, this is my 60-year-old Uber driver. I'm like, let me educate you on something.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So people really, I mean, there's a lot of misinformation about
Right.
getting pregnant out there, unfortunately.
Right. Right. I know. I remember, I feel like I always think of Glee.
Yeah. Yes, in a hot tub. I always think about that.
Always think about that. Always think about that. And I think the reason it sticks out in my mind is I'm like, wow, people actually fully have like believed that and that like fully has been their journey. And that is a crazy
100%.
thought. Yeah.
I believed that until I was probably 18.
Exactly.
I was like, 100% what they said makes sense.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
literally is science. Like it's
Yeah.
Glee. Yeah. I'm glad you knew what I was talking about. Otherwise, that'd be really hard to explain. Okay, so I guess I'm curious then, what is your next like big dream or idea that you are excited about bringing into Spring's brand ecosystem?
Yeah, there's a few things. I would say my two big things I'm really working towards at Spring from just a partnerships level because I just love partnerships. Are partnering with a clothing rental company to give people free month or week, probably a month of a clothing rental service because you just get really bloated during the ovarian stimulation process. And so people are like, my jeans don't fit. I have to go to the office. Like this sucks. And so I think that's such an easy way to make your patients feel better. And also on the other side of it, I think that wearables are obviously such a hot topic across the health industry. I think there's so much research to be done about things like heart rate variability and the quality of your sleep and how those affect your ability to conceive or your outcomes when you are going through ovarian stimulation and we just don't know how those are related if they are at all. And I personally would love to know how they're related. And so I think that I would love for Spring to partner with a wearables company to do that research and then also bring that research into the zeitgeist to be here's what you can do about it. If there is some kind of correlation, here's what you can do about it.
Right, right. I love that. I especially think that clothing rental is genius. That is
Yeah.
actually brilliant. Love
Yeah.
that idea.
Yeah. Hopefully soon.
Yeah. Where do you see fertility conversations as a whole heading in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hopefully a lot more demystified in the next 5 to 10 years. I think hopefully more people will be talking about their personal experiences, but also I think there probably will be a lot more research on environmental effects on fertility. At least I hope. I think that, it's something that even when I started at Spring, I think just as a general statement, the industry was more closed off to how are toxins or all of these different things, how do they affect fertility? And I think the more that research comes out about how they're linked to cancer, that is a light bulb in a fertility doctor's mind of okay, how could that be affecting my patients if it's causing cancer, right? So I think that hopefully there's just a lot more research about it and the industry involves in such a way that everybody is talking about how if it's your microbiome or if it's microplastics, there's probably a lot longer on microplastics. But I think your microbiome is one that's a good starting point. A lot of research is already being done, right? So I hope we just continue to acknowledge the effects of that while not making patients feel guilty for anything that they did along the way or happened to them along the way. But it's we have this information and we can empower you with it and here's what we're going to do about it.
I'd love to hear more about that. And I would love to see 'cause also and I'm not a research expert in this area at all, but heard actually on the Hot Smart Rich podcast today,
Yeah.
about the how few women are having children or how they're having way less children in America than globally, which I think we kind of knew, but has, like, been really confirmed this last year, and I'm so curious how much of that is correlated between the, like, actual ease of having children and that
Yes.
ability. So, yeah. It'd be interesting to see
Right.
how that progresses.
Yeah, I know. I thought the same exact thing when I heard it, when they were talking about like, well, it's so hard, like once you have the baby to like, the resources to keep it alive. And I'm like, yeah, and all the people who are trying so hard and can't afford to have IVF. Like,
Yeah, to even get started.
yeah, exactly.
Do you have any personal interest in the future in building your something of your own? You know, a book, podcast, platform, brands?
Yes, I think like all of the above.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out what that thing is.
Yeah.
I am actually have I started writing a book in college with my mom, and that's been sort of just like sitting on my computer for a long time, and I pick it up and then I put it back down. So I think that eventually, hopefully that will happen. But I've also really been, as I was saying, like I love CPG, and I have a really good friend who works in market research in CPG. And we like, we'll have 2 hour long phone calls where we're talking about like what's going on with this American Eagle campaign and like what are the new products that people are putting out. And so we've been batting around this idea of like, do we want to start a podcast where we just like talk about almost like the pop culture news in CPG? Like it's probably a very limited number of people who would like that would apply to, but I don't know. I'm like, that could just be a fun activity for us, even if nobody listens. So I think maybe that too. We'll see.
Sounds great. Well, I'm excited to see what you have. That sounds so interesting to me.
Yeah,
Okay. Do you want to do some rapid fire before we wrap up?
let's do it.
Okay. Perfect. Because I don't want to take up too much of your time. But okay, first question. What is one piece of fertility advice you wish more people would hear?
That it's not weird or embarrassing to go and get an initial consult at a fertility clinic to know what your baseline is.
Good. I like that. I feel like I need to hear that right now.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have a favorite non-work ritual that helps keep you grounded?
Yes, swimming in the lake and sitting on my couch with my fiancé and watching YouTube.
Oh, cute. So simple. That makes me so happy. Okay, last question.
Mhm.
What is something people are surprised to learn about you?
In high school, I really thought I wanted to be a wedding planner, and so I interned and, like, worked as a wedding planner's assistant for, like, 4 years from high school into college.
That's so much fun.
It was really
Whoa. You have so many good options for like alter careers if you
totally.
ever, you know? That's so cool. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah.
Where can people connect with you and learn more about you slash Spring Fertility?
Yeah, so you can follow Spring on Instagram, TikTok. Instagram's more of our platform these days, but it's at Spring Fertility. Same for Open Fertility at Open Fertility. And then my Instagram's not very interesting, but I am posting more on TikTok. I'm at Ella_Pennington, and happy to like put my name or my email in the show notes if anybody wants to connect.
Yes, of course. Okay, great. Well, thank you, Ella, so much for coming on. I'm so excited I got to chat to you.
Yes,
Yeah.
me too. Thank you.
Hey,